Okay, today we're going to work through the crop import module, and we're working today with a file for planting. Try to get it here so we can see it on screen a little better. That's not what I wanted to do. My apologies. Pull it over here a little bit. Basically, we can import from several different types of monitors and programs into Crop Audit. Most recently, we've been doing a lot of the custom mapping, column mapping, which means we don't have to keep up to date on all of the different software that the different monitors and tractors use. We can just export it into Excel and look at the data and tell FBS which columns to look in for the data that we need to bring in. So as long as you can get an Excel file for your crop, applications or harvests that have the basic data of a field name, a date. It doesn't have to have the start and the end date, but just one date that you want to show as your application date or harvest date. And then if you're applying something like this is seed, you want a column that has the name of the seed or input that you're applying. You must have a column with the acres that you applied that to. And then here we have a column H, it says average, that would be our application rate. And this would be our total units applied. And it's just kind of nice to know that you do know that this is like the total seeds or kernels applied. If you're using inputs, it would be nice to know what units it is and if it is ounces or gallons, just to make sure that your input setup matched your application units, because that can get a little hairy if you have, say we're talking about a chemical that's you have put in that applies in gallons in your chemical setup, but here you're applying in ounces. That would cause some conversion issues. So you have to make sure that when you're doing inputs that their units of application match on your spreadsheet here, as well as or matches to the application units you have in your input setup. But this is a basic seed application spreadsheet that we're going to import today. So I was going to close it so we can import it, because you don't want to open when you're importing it. And we're going to go to Input, Import Export, and we're going to go to Import Crop Data. And make sure you have your date range that encompasses the date range of your file you're importing. The file I have is from 2018, so I have it for all of 2018. It is the CSV file. We are looking at application data. You have the option of harvest or application data here. So we are choosing application data. And then for my CSV file source, we have these other options up here. You can see these are all the options that we've worked with in the past. But I can't say for sure they're up to date, because obviously like Trimble, Ag Leader, Apex, they don't tell us when they change something. So I mentioned we kind of went to this map column option here down here. And we can make almost any Excel sheet map columns correctly for us. So I pick that, and then I go to where that seed file is, and it's in my documents. Over here, I have to click over here after I click on documents. And you want to make sure you have a little checkbox there, because you have to have a little check mark in the box in front of the file you want to import. At that time, I click OK. It asks me, do I want to check my column mapping? I suggest this always. On the left here is the column headings, as was seen in the Excel file. And then on the right is what I'm mapping it to in FBS. So the column name was field name. I'm putting it to field description. Start date is my date. End date, I'm going to change that to none, because it's nothing I need right now. Crop I don't need. The variety was the name of the seed, so I want that to be in my product number one, description number one is why I choose that description number one of the first product I'm applying, because you could have multiple columns here and apply your seed at the same time you did some chemicals or fertilizer or whatever you might be doing at the same time. My area is my acres. And then I know my average, like I mentioned on that spreadsheet, that was my application rate and my application units. So that is why I choose, and it happens to be number 28 down here that I like. And that seems to be work the best for me for this file. It does take a little bit of trial and error sometimes to figure out which FBS field to put this into just to make sure you have the right one. But I like to use the application rate. It seems to be the most accurate. And I do use number 28, which is my application rate and application units. So then I save that. And you get a screen that pops up like this. And now this is all mapped. Why do I want to make it that big? I apologize. Let me see if I can get it a little smaller so we can see everything. So if there was anything in red, I would need to definitely go back and map that. But as we scroll through here, there isn't anything in red. Everything is in black. And if I check for errors, nothing comes up, which is great. But we could say, say this DD3 was in red, which means my field would need to be mapped. I click on this field map. This mapping kind of goes along with a lot of our mapping within FBS. Always on the left-hand side is what shows up on the spreadsheet. It will save the descriptions from previously. So we see some that are on this import file, like these 120, 40, 70 Baker Brandons. Those aren't happen to be on this import file I'm importing, but they were on previous import files. So it saves those so that you don't have to always remap them. Just map them that 1 year to the correct center and project. And then it stays mapped so you don't have to remap that field description every time you come in. Here's that DD1 we were talking about. That is on this one. And we see we have it mapped to 2018 corn, and then we pick the field the project that it goes with, which happens to be in this case the 26 Kincaid field. You'd have to map anything that wasn't correct, so you always like to come down through here and make sure everything is mapped correctly for you. You'll know your fields best to know how they're mapped. Once everything looks good, you would hit save, and then we'd look to see if there was any inputs that was in red. These are all in black right now, but if they were in red, we go to the application map and just make sure everything was mapped here. If it wasn't mapped here, and the entry description would say unknown, so you can kind of scroll through here and make sure there's no unknowns. And there are some here. These beans, these are all they were in a previous import that we don't need to know for right now, but I will show you how it maps just because they are showing here as unknown. So obviously it says post-bean insecticide, so that was from a previous one. I'm assuming it's a chemical, but you have an option of chemical application, fertilizer, operation, and a macro. So this one would have been a chemical and it would have been an insecticide, so we just have to find the insecticide called post-bean 20 insecticide or whatever you want to map that to. I'm just making one up, so you go through and do that and say if this was a seed instead of post RU24, you pick seed and then pick the seed that it went with, and pick your method there. That would be how you would map something and hit save when you're done. On this screen, we can see how it's going to import into FBS. It's kind of like your preview page. So here we have like field DD5. The seed I'm applying is a CH214 seed, and we're going on 14.79 acres. And this tells us actually the labels here get a little, they don't really work with what we're importing, but we know that dry quantity is our purchase quantity and the wet quantity is our application rate, so that should match the wet quantity should match the application rate on the spreadsheet that we were importing from. And I can pull that spreadsheet back up again just to show you really quick so we don't know what we're talking about here. Why does it always make that small? I apologize. My Excel is not acting right today. And so that was I believe it was DD1. So I'm just gonna make my columns bigger here so we can see what's going on. And we are comparing this one right here. It's actually not that one. What field was that again? Let's see here. DD5. My apologies. So I'm looking for a field DD5. There happens to be two of them, so we gotta make sure we look at the right one. Make it a little bigger here. So we have DD5 on 429, and it was with the CH214 seed right here for the variety, 1479 acres, which if it came up here and scrolled across, that matches our 14.79 acres there. And then we have our seed, our average or our rate per acre is 34,763. matches 34,763. It has converted it into dry quantity, which is purchases, which is probably bags, so 6.43 bags. Everything here looks great. Everything is mapped. It's bringing in the quantities like I want to, so I'm going to close my Excel sheet so it doesn't cause any problems. And then I click on the batch import button right here. It disappears, and that means that it has imported it. Of course, I always recommend running a report to ensure that the import came in like you expected it. So for this one, I'm going to run my crop history report. Most of those were mapped to that 181 center, so I'll go ahead and run that for that 181 center. I'll leave it wide open for the year. All those plantings to take place in April and May, but I can just leave it open, that's fine. And then we can run the report. Of course, we were doing seed applications, so I'll click on my seed tab. And then again, here is what we saw on that kind of that preview screen, and it shows us where we imported it at. And of course, these we did map to the FBS values of seed and field, which don't match our seed and field exactly on that import screen or in that import file, just because of the data set I brought that into. But here, everything looks good. We don't have anything. A couple of them I look that were kind of crazy, I guess. On these would be like that. Obviously, they 71,000 bags. And you look on here and see what was going on there. And it's probably because my rate per acre looks really good over here at 33,727. I would kind of look at see my conversion factor. Of course, we see here that this is in pounds, which is obviously an issue because we know that everything was in seed over there. So you can see the ones that kind of show up as really weird purchase units. They show pounds over here instead of kernels, which just means that my setup in FBS did not match my setup, the import file, as far as the seed setup. So I probably picked the wrong seed when I mapped that. We probably want to go back, get rid of those. Maybe if you had this and you need to re-import it, the best way to do it would be to delete all of our seed applications from that import file and then re-import it. So you might ask how to do that. Great question. So I know all these seeds were from April and May, obviously. So then I would come in here, go to input and then general. Click on your crop entries over here on the far right, and then I would do a search. Luckily, we only have this one batch of seed planting, so I click on my plant seed and click OK, and then this brings in everything that I just imported. I hit delete and enter and hold that enter button down so it goes through all of them. Because as I know, the only applications I have in here right now are those seeds I just imported. You could then go back in and map to the correct seed, or if your seed was mapped correctly and it was your input, your seed setup in FBS, you would come to setup, crops, seeds, find the seeds that were set up incorrectly to pounds instead of kernels. So maybe it was, is this one right here? Maybe we have to edit, and it says 50,000 pounds. Maybe that was wrong. Maybe it should have been we purchased in bags, but our application units were actually seeds. So you would change this to, and then maybe change this to, I don't know, I don't remember what the application, and then of course, application units and purchase unit for seed could be different if it's bulk or bagged. You could change that here to make it match your import file as far as you were applying seeds instead of pounds. Whatever it needs to be done to make that match so that the conversion is correct. And you would hit save. And you would then go back through the process we did a minute ago to re-import the file. Okay. I hope this helps. Just know that we can probably make any Excel sheet import correctly using that map columns. It's a really handy tool that we now have at our disposal, and it makes importing all of our applications as well as our harvest really quick and easy into Crop Audit. Thanks.